If you're like me and you find the prosecutors of the Lindsay Clancy case to be, oh, I don't know, repugnant, I would tell you it can get worse. And it was worse for LaTarsha Sanders. Are you wondering who she is? Well, she's a woman who was convicted of killing her kids. She tried to put on an insanity defense, but she was found guilty and sent to prison. But this last Thursday, August 6th, she was granted a new trial. And the reason this is important is because this is the same district attorney and it's the same judge that we're seeing in the Lindsay Clancy case. Excuse me, I'm looking at notes. LaTarsha was a Brockton woman who admitted to the stabbing of her sons, Marlon, age 8, and Lasan, age 5, in February of 2018. Her defense attorney argued that she was insane at the time because of Judge Sullivan's ruling. The jury never saw thousands of pages of medical records that were compiled after the murders. Doctors found she suffered from hallucinations and paranoid schizophrenia that was undetected for years. While there are some significant similarities between these two cases, mothers who have admitted to killing their own children, there is also some very stark differences in how the judge treated the two defendants. Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court stated in its unanimous ruling just this last Thursday that Judge Sullivan had erred. LaTarsha Sanders was denied a fair trial because her entire psychiatric history was not shared with the jury who convicted her of first-degree murder. It was on December 27th of 2022 when a jury found LaTarsha Sanders guilty of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of witness intimidation. It was a 9-day trial and the jury deliberated for 4 hours. Then the very next day, Judge Sullivan was the one to sentence her. This happened 1 month before Lindsay Clancy took the lives of her 3 children. Sorry, this is going to be a little bit hard to hear, but Marlon and Lasan were found in their beds in a 3rd-floor apartment on Prospect Street. The boys were stabbed about 100 times in total between the 2 of them. And what the medical examiner testified to was that there were fatal wounds that were delivered, but then after that, there continued to be cutting and stabbing that went on for over a longer period of time. Found some information from NBC News 10 in Boston. So prior to, during the time of the trial, there's kind of 2 stories that were being told, right? So there's one group, one camp, basically goes like this. Family had described in court records that LaTarsha was an evil and angry person. Her own mother told the police she was mentally unstable and crazy, and that she had an obsession with Illuminati theory. There were others, they said people who truly knew her. Her remaining adult children and some family supported her fully because they understood it was an illness, not malice, that drove this unimaginable harm. This is one of the opinions that was written afterwards. There's no doubt the defendant committed these incomprehensible crimes. The sole issue before a superior court jury was whether she lacked criminal responsibility. We hold that the exclusion of the defendant's relevant medical records relating to the diagnosis or treatment of mental illness constituted prejudicial error, and as a result, the defendant is entitled to a new trial. In a statement, her attorney said they are profoundly grateful and they look forward to a second trial. Meanwhile, the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office, which is the same district attorney's office that is prosecuting Lindsay Clancy, shared a statement on Thursday saying it is our duty as a prosecutor's office to be the voice of victims of crime like Marlon and Lasan. We will continue to do so in their memory. We are currently reviewing the opinion of the Supreme Judicial Court and determine the next steps. Highly encourage you to go read this article that was been printed in the Boston Globe because it talks about how people who, on the rare case that someone who is very ill does something horrific, they should not be held criminally responsible. They're too sick to control their actions, and they don't understand the wrongfulness of them. And it talks about this principle that goes back hundreds of years, that punishing for conduct that is outside of their control is essentially criminalizing mental illness. They go on to say, yeah, well, so much for the fucking principle, because in practice, it's nearly impossible to persuade a jury to find someone not guilty by reason of insanity in murder cases, even in a place as progressive as Massachusetts. They also did some research and they reviewed 41 jury trials in that state since 1990 in which the defendant charged with first-degree murder raised an insanity defense. So it's been 41 times it's happened, and the juries rejected the defense in all but 5. So they delivered 36 convictions. So it goes on to say that there are some prosecutors that understand the illness over the conviction, and they can reduce it to murder in the second degree. But here's the important part. It says some prosecutors, however, will charge first-degree murder even when it's obvious that a defendant is profoundly ill. Does this sound familiar to you? It should. Plymouth District Attorney Timothy J. Cruz is the most strident among them, famously inflexible when it comes to prosecuting any offense, let alone murder. Cruz charged LaTarsha Sanders with first-degree murder. At the trial, ADA Amanda Fowle argued that Sanders killed the son she loved not because she was mentally ill, but because she was evil, and that she tried to use the, quote, crazy card to get away with it. Then she argued that Sanders did it for the money and for fame. She stabbed her children almost beyond recognition so she could, quote, write a book and get famous and get money. That is what the prosecutor told the jurors. She based this on basically a journal entry that she made 16 months before the killing, where she said the best stories draw the best money. That could have been any context in the world. But fucking ADA Fowle decided that was ominous and, like this woman, killed her kids to get money. Fowle, who's now in private practice, stood by her conduct in the case. Quote, it was well within my ethical bounds to present the best case I could to the jury, and the jury returned a verdict of first-degree murder. According to the Boston Globe, they say DA Cruz appears to be running the same playbook. But Lindsay does have a clear record of treatment and public sympathy that LaTarsha did not have. The main difference between the two is being pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis. So we will wait and see what happens when LaTarsha Sanders gets her second trial in Plymouth County.